Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I'm glad you're here today on this, Thursday. Welcome on a Thursday. We take your biblical, theological worldview questions. I'm Randy White. We'll have a good time doing it. RandyWhiteMinistries.org is our website. And look forward to seeing what's on your mind today. I'm not sure. You all tell me. I don't know if the blue tie really goes with this. The plan was I was going to sit here, I was going to look, I was going to check. Next thing I know, Nathan's got the music going, and he says, mute your mic, mute your mic. Things are on. So what do you think? I'm looking over there at the monitor. I'm kind of thinking, let's not redo this. It's not the worst, but not the best. So what's your thinking on it? That's what I would like to know. And Nathan, bring my chats up there, and we'll be good for that. But I look forward to seeing you tonight, also 7 p.m. We are in the book of Titus. Look forward to a good time there, as we'll have some fun on Thursday night Bible studies, as we always do. And we'll really look forward to studying this afternoon, teaching tonight, and seeing what's in the good book of Titus. And we'll be good. The tie clashes. That's a fashion heresy. This comes from Russell. And I don't know. The Englishmen are known for a lot of things, but I don't know if style is one of them. Maybe. I mean, you got the Queen, obviously. She's the Queen of fashion. But let's see. I don't know. Someone like Alabama, there is the center of the fashion world. So anybody in Alabama, what do you think? I'm afraid Russell might be right, even though he's from England. Yeah, y'all let me know. It's actually the second tie. I tried another one. I had kind of a yellow. Madison, go give me the tie that's over the chair over there. We're gonna solve this once for all. By the way, as I am getting started here, I'll get to the questions here eventually. But I also have one other thing. So that's the tie I had. No, see, I don't think that works either. What do you think? Well, maybe. I didn't like it, so that one didn't make the cut. I'm not sure the blue should either. What do you think, Madison?
I think the blue looks okay.
Oh, the Wisconsin vote is it's okay. Is okay like it's fine for now, but don't ever do it again, or would you go?
I think you could do it again.
She thinks I could do it again. Okay, this is Green Bay, Wisconsin versus Kent, England. Now, what I was about to say in our live studio audience, most of the time is our two interns, Course Plus Nathan, and they are preparing for a life of ministry. And with a life of ministry, I am mentoring them a little bit. So here's what I want to do. I want from time to time, I want some of you to ask a ministry mentoring question. So here's, you can have an agenda behind it, or you can just be curious and just say, this is an M&M question, a ministry mentoring question. And it would be something that Corbin and Madison should listen to. You'd say, hey, I'd like the old bald-headed man to give some wise, sage advice to the youngsters here. So if you have a ministry mentoring question, then bring it up. Okay, Pennsylvania says the tie is a tad off. But Alabama, this is what I was wondering here. Alabama, there's enough of a contrast between your blue tie and tan jacket. The tan goes well with the shirt, whatever color that is. Alabama approves. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. Yeah, I have a hard time with this shirt. I don't wear it very often because it doesn't go with anything. So there it is. Okay. Now let's get into something more serious. Like we do have a question from Russell in Kent, who is not so sure about the tie. I think the rifleman would have only worn I don't know what you call it. It's not really a bow tie, but it's the kind of string. It's not really a bolo either. It's like like a long string, and you kind of tie it and it hangs there. On anybody other than Chuck Connors, it probably looks girly. If I wore it, you would look and laugh me out of town. But when he went to church from time to time, that's what he would wear. Here, this is what I'm talking about right here. I guess it's called a Western bow tie. Vintage black satin Western tie, mid-century cowboy style, Colonel Sanders bow tie, country Western rockabilly formal necktie wedding groom. Whew, that got it. I could get one for $19.99. I don't know. I think you all would think I had gone absolutely crazy if I wore the mid-century bow tie. So that's what the rifleman did wear. I saw him wear it a few times. Okay. I see a good M&M question coming up there from Jim down in Georgia. Okay, but let's start with Russell's question. Habakkuk chapter 3, verses 3 through 6, and get my scripture up here. Here we go. Sorry, I wasn't in order. Okay. Habakkuk 3, verses 3 through 6. I find this verse about horns coming out of his hands very interesting, especially, he says from Kent, especially that part about the hiding of his power. This is Jesus, I believe. Do you know what the reference to the horns are all about, or what the horns symbolize? Let's check. Habakkuk is one I was going through my mind. I don't think I've taught Habakkuk. We need to do some minor prophets. It's been a while since we've had. Of course, we did Ezekiel last year, but we need to get some of those up. I did Haggai a year or so ago also. Let's check it. Habakkuk chapter 3, verses 3 through 6. God came from Teman, and a little marginal note there. Let's see what it says, or from the south, okay? And the Holy One from Mount Paran, Selah. His glory covered the heavens, and the earth was full of his praise, and his brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his hand, and there was the hiding of his power. Now, this is horns coming out of God's hand, it seems. Before him went the pestilence with burning coals, went forth at his feet. He stood and measured the earth and beheld, and he beheld, and drove asunder. I can't read here today. And drove asunder the nations. And the everlasting mountains were scattered. The perpetual hills did bow. His ways are everlasting. Okay, so it's in verse 5, God comes with horns in his hand. It is an interesting description. I think that prophetically, horns are typically either nations or probably even more so the national leaders like the king. So if that's true, that when you talk horns in prophecy, they always symbolize the same thing, and that is that they symbolize world leaders, or maybe we should just say leaders, because there is the possibility here that we've got Jesus Christ. So is that true? So it's an assumption we'll start with. Got to have a starting point. So again, verse 4, he had horns coming out of his hand. Let's enlarge this a little bit. And then we have a marginal note on horns, and it says, bright beams out of his side. Now there's kind of a lot of difference between horns in the hand and bright beams out of the side. So we probably understand that there is not really a textual variant here, but there are two ways of translating or getting that from Hebrew into English. One is horns in his hands, one is bright beams coming out of his side. Okay, what have we got here? Let's check Young's literal, verse 4. And the brightness is as the light he hath rays out of his hand. Now, here they have gone with rays, but kept hand. He hath rays out of his hand, and there the hiding of his strength. In his hand is the hiding of his strength, and he's got these horns or these rays. Let's go ahead while we're at it and check Darby, see what he's got to say in verse 4. And his brightness was as the light, rays come forth from his hand. Okay. So we're dealing with, again, do we have rays, as in, I would suppose, rays of light, or do we have horns? In one sense, you can see that maybe it's the same word used for both. They would both have roughly the same shape. Let's look at the Hebrew word and see the various translations of it. And 76 times, so we've got a lot to compare with, and it looks pretty solid horns. Here's one that's a very fruitful hill, whereas different must be a contextual thing here. But okay, yeah, with 76 times and what looks like, in just a brief glance at it, it looks like 75 of them are horns. Now, let's, I'm not sure we can compare here in Young's, I don't believe it's connected to the Hebrew here to be able to do it, but maybe so. Let's check. No, it's not. We're not able to do that, and I doubt we're able to do that on Darby. But we're going to check. No, we're okay. So I can't really compare to see how consistent that they were. Though we could do just a very quick comparison here. Let's take Genesis 22:13, caught in the thicket by his horns. And yeah, Darby uses horn there, and Young's literal uses horns there, as I think we would kind of expect. Here, I'm not sure it's going to make much difference on the interpretation anyway, but I would say here, looks to me like you've got to go with horns. Now, again, that's almost incidental. What is this the meaning of? I think horns is easier because leaders. Now, you say, Russell's assumption is, I believe this is Jesus. The challenge is going to be the plural here. He had horns coming out of his hand. Do we have the ability to change that into a singular? This is the Hebrew has a little bit different, the dual, the plural, and the singular. This is actually in the dual. But let's, yeah, so we can put it in the singular. Well, it's interesting. Habakkuk 3:4 shows up in that list of singular. Oh, no, I'm sorry. I've got it looking for dual or singular. Now, that does bring a little bit of challenge to say this is Jesus Christ because of the plural nature of it. There's more than one. And with that plural nature of it, do we can we say this is Jesus? Or could we say that here comes God, again, let's pick up in verse 3, here comes God from Teman, the Holy One from Mount Paran, Selah. His glory covered the heavens, his earth was full of his praise, his brightness was as the light. He had the world powers in his hand, and there was the hiding of his power. He could take the world powers, carry them wherever he wanted them to go. I think because of the plural nature, I would go with that prior than I would go with Jesus Christ. But again, Hebrew, especially when you get into dual, it's not quite as refined as would be the English singular and plural. So there's still the possibility that that's right. I want us to go ahead and look at the Jewish translation here. And let's go to Habakkuk. Again, we're looking in chapter 3, verses 3 through 6. And specifically verse 4, there was brightness like the light they had raised from his hand, and there was his strength hidden. Raised, the expression of light, which when piercing and shining through a hole appears like protruding horns. Similarly, Exodus 34:29, for the skin of his face shone. Now that's helpful. Exodus 34:29, let's compare that and see if we can figure out while we're on this horns here. It came to pass when Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tables of testimony in his hand, when he came down from the mount, that Moses wist not that that the skin of his face shone while he talked with him. Shone. Okay, it's the same root as the word horn. So there is a connection there with the shining light. Rashi helps us out a little bit when, he says, appears like a horn. So the light shining through his hand. Now, you've got the issue here that is this, I've been looking at it as God the Father, but could this here be that we're actually considering a picture of Jesus coming and the second coming of Jesus? And therefore, and this may be what Russell was about all the while, and as he's over there in Kent, England, saying, get rid of the blue tie and ask the question like I meant it. If there are holes in his hand and the light shining through, that could be Jesus, the Messiah there. Okay, worked through it long enough, Russell, that perhaps this is Messiah coming, not God the Father. Could we build that case? I wouldn't be surprised if we couldn't build the case in Habakkuk. Again, you've definitely got in verse 3, God, Elohim, came. So you would have to convince the ladies and the gentlemen of the jury that Messiah could use the word Elohim. If you can build that case, by the way, that becomes a very useful tool, because then you have the case for the deity of the Messiah built from the Old Testament itself, which I think the Old Testament does build the case of the deity of the Messiah. But if you can find a clearly messianic phrase and it uses Elohim, that really helps. So I'll give you some homework there. See if you can do that. So, this could be the second coming. The God came from Teman, the Holy One, from the Mount Paran. His glory covered the heavens. His earth was full of his praise. That's very much second coming kind of stuff. His brightness was as the light. He had horns coming out of his hands. Now, again, let's take that. He had bright beams coming out of his side or out of his hand. I think hand's going to be appropriate there. It tells us about the nail-pierced hands, which would be very interesting if indeed we could build a case for the nail-pierced hands there. Now, again, I'm not obviously an expert on the book of Habakkuk, but that would be very worthy of digging into and seeing if we can build a messianic case from Habakkuk chapter 3, verse 4. And I was seeing if our friend Dr. Bullinger from Russell's neighbor from Kent, if he has, he says horns equal power, figure of speech, for the power put forth by them. okay, Hebrew, the dual two rays or two horns. So I think obviously he's got two hands. He's got a horn coming out or a ray coming out of each hand. And Russell corrected me as I finally worked around and corrected myself. And that's what this program is you watch the airplane circling until it finally finds the pattern, and then it goes. Yeah, he was correcting me. He says, I don't mean Jesus, I mean the horns are in Jesus' hand. I think you could build the case that this is Jesus coming, and his brightness, the brightness of Jesus, was as the light. Jesus had horns or rays of sunshine coming out of his hand, and there was the hiding of his power. Before him went the pestilence, and the burning coals went forth from his feet. Again, that kind of sounds a little bit like the book of Revelation. He stood and measured the earth, and behold, and beheld, and drove asunder the nations, and the everlasting mountains were scattered. The perpetual hills did bow. His ways are everlasting. Everything there fits, like the coming of the Lord at the second coming. Excellent. I finally got there. Took me 21 minutes, but we got there, Russell. I think you're onto something. I agree with you. Do you know what the reference to the horns are all about? It could be power, that he's got power in both hands, as Bullinger says, and as horns often mean. But it could also be a reference to the nail-scarred hand. Possibly. It obviously is reading a little bit into that, but the horns obviously mean something. You don't just, show up to take rain and you're holding a couple of horns. So they are symbolic, no doubt about it, as a figure of speech. Is it a figure of speech of power, or is it not so much a figure of speech, and it's a display of the nail-pierced hands and light coming from his hands? Excellent question. Thanks. I appreciate that. So Russell says, Nathan, when is the website, Worshipify, being updated to 2.0? We want our voting buttons and the big red horn to press when Randy spends too much time on one question, forcing him to stop and go to the next question. The bluntness of of an Englishman. An Englishman is supposed to be subtle and, work around. What's up with this, Russell? Just like, we want the stop already button. I think that would be a very popular addition. You could, if you were voting, I want you to be able to vote for the question. Put the question at the top. Instead of just going in order, boom, 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 let's vote this one up. The stop already. Done. Now, I won't take it just from one stop, because there's always that one out there. I'm not interested in this. But, we need a threshold. How far are we from telling Randy just enough? We got it. Can you work those in? Probably. He says probably. Okay. You have it here. Worshipify 2.0. Paul says, be careful, Russell. With a question like that, Randy may kick you off Worshipify. Do we have the capability of blocking somebody, if we don't like them? And speaking of Paul in King, Wisconsin, and we've already got one Wisconsin vote that says the blue tie is okay. What do you think, Paul? I don't know. King, Wisconsin's if I recall, it's a little southwest of. It's to the south and to the west of Green Bay, if I'm not mistaken. Who do you think will live in the New Jerusalem? We've got a couple of assumptions here that I think are right, but we'll go ahead and build it. That you've got millennial Jerusalem probably described in Ezekiel, And then you've got New Jerusalem, the eternal city. So I think, who lives there? I'm going to make an assumption, and this is yet another one that we probably should spend more time on, but I'm afraid Russell would click the stop button, or see Chuck would, he wants a rabbit button too, you know, just like, get along, quit being a tortoise, move it. But I think what we would want is to say, that the Jews of Jerusalem, earthly Jerusalem, are going to be the ones that live in New Jerusalem. We still have the question of, where do we, the body of Christ, live? And you've got to put us somewhere. But there's a new heaven, a new earth, and a new Jerusalem. So I don't think we're going to live on the new earth, but there's that possibility. But what about the new heaven? And what's the difference between the new heaven and the new Jerusalem? What we describe as heaven is actually the new Jerusalem. The pearly gates, the streets of gold, that's New Jerusalem. So what's the heaven like, and who lives there? There's a lot of unknowns. I guess I would say, I haven't used this verse in a long time, but remember Paul says, now we see through a glass darkly, but then we shall see face to face. So I think in the end, I have to say, who do you think will live in New Jerusalem? I think probably the chosen people, the Jews, but I don't know that for sure. The nations seem to be on the earth. Maybe heaven is the throne room of God. But God says, I will dwell with them as well, and we could put him in the New Jerusalem. It's difficult to iron that out. I think that it doesn't always, we don't always have the answer, unfortunately. We don't always have the answer. Chuck in Oklahoma says, I think Randy's coats and ties are very important to the show's theme and hope they always stay a part of it. This is not the Joe Rogan show with so little dignity in order. The blue tie is fine. Now, this comes from another fashion capital of the world, Weatherford, Oklahoma. But Chuck, he knows how to dress. He's a fine dresser. So, you know, he's giving me a fine. It's kind of like Madison's okay, right? Okay. Thanks. We have several votes for the rabbit, Nathan. We got some votes for emojis. Lots coming through there. You're gonna be busy. Busy. From Edith in Missouri. Edith spoke about the tie here somewhere, and then I'll get to Edith's question. Oh, Lorna, we already said that. The tie's a tad off. Carnaby Street in London, the fashion capital of Great Britain. Russell, have you been to Carnaby Street? If you haven't been to Carnaby Street, then don't you be talking about my tie. Nancy says the shirt and the coat are great together, but does not mention the tie. But Mike, you know, Lorna says it's a tad off. Dr. Mike says it goes well. And Nancy, Nancy brings it. I think the jacket has a light blue running through it. And it does. It's a very, very slight, but it's there. Okay, there's Edith. I knew she had a comment somewhere. The blue tie is fine, but a little overpowering. You might be right there. It is a little overpowering. That's why when I looked over at the screen there and saw it slapping me across the face, I thought, it almost, do you think it looks a little better buttoned, doesn't it? But it's hard to sit. You know, if you're standing, button is fine, but sitting, it doesn't do so good. So, but it helps take the overpowering. Now to the question. When I switched from New King James back to King James about 7 years ago, I noticed that the New King James changed to past tense in some of Paul's epistles. And examples, and I'm going to pull up, get all my scripture here so I can pull up a couple of examples. Let's see. So let me get the question, and then we'll look at some of these examples. I noticed that the New King James changed to past tense in some of Paul's epistles. I think this makes a big difference. What are your thoughts? Here's some of the examples that are given. Let's check it out. Romans chapter 5, verse 1. And I tell you what, on the screen here, I'm going to bring the New King James up on the left and King James on the right. Therefore, being justified by faith, we have peace with God through our Lord Jesus Christ. Therefore, having been justified, we have peace. Okay, so we've got a having been justified or being justified. Just before we even look at the issues of it, maybe it's, we might argue, okay, it's both and. It's not going to make a lot of theological difference if we have been justified. We are justified. If we're being justified, then we're justified. What is it here? Let's check the Greek and see what the difference here is. Romans 5:1. Being justified is the aorist passive participle. Aorist passive participle. Participle in English almost always is an ing. So being justified. Now, New King James kind of brings this participle in it because they say having, but they make it into a perfect. This is an aorist passive participle. Well, here's the challenge. The aorist is neither past, present, or future. The aorist is a point in time, and it can be in the past, it can be in the now, it can be in the future, but it's a point of time. It's not something that takes place over time. So I think New King James was trying to get that, boom, point in time, and get the participle in there. Both of them are struggling with this. But I would agree that Paul has it in the aorist passive, not in the perfect passive. And I would argue that New King James has changed an aorist passive participle into a perfect passive participle. Well, I don't think a translator has the right to do that. You can't just say, I think it's because it's their theology that dictates that change. And they say, no, we've already been justified. He did it to us in the past. So having been justified, instead of being justified, right now we're being justified. But it's a point in time. So it doesn't speak anything about anything outside of that point in time. I think I would go with the King James on that. It doesn't make a huge difference on Romans 5:1, but it sure could possibly lead you astray if you're studying aorist passive participles, and some of those might make a difference, and then you begin to make the comparison, and the change in that could make a difference. But even let's pretend like it makes absolutely no difference in the world. It's the same conclusion. Then I would say, well, why did you change it? Who gives you the right? Translators of the New King James Version, just to say, this sounds better. So I'm not comfortable with it. Let's try an Ephesians passage for another example. Ephesians chapter 2, verse 8. For by grace are ye saved through faith, and New King James, for by grace you have been saved through faith. Once again, the verb here is a present active indicative. Present, now, active, is the subject has done it. And indicative, just a statement of fact. Now, they make it, you have been. Again, yeah, I don't know if you can see at the bottom of the screen there, but I'm putting my mouse over you, and it brings up the verb here as a perfect passive participle versus, again, let me come over here. Perfect passive. Okay, no, I need the to be verb. Present active. And I got to look at the Greek because I can't figure out where they have even put that. You know, they really, it's the have been right here, are versus have been, and their underlying issues don't even bring up this STUR. Yeah, that they clearly changed a present active indicative to a perfect passive. That I would say, yeah, unacceptable to carry that out. That's just two of the examples. And many other examples that Edith gives here. And so she says, I think this makes a big difference. What do you think? Again, does it make a big difference in the particular passages we look at? Maybe, maybe not. But does that matter? No, I don't think so. It doesn't matter because somewhere it will make a difference. And it just tells us the underlying philosophy of the translators. And the underlying philosophy of the translators is one that we say, I reject that. I want a translator who actually keeps the verb tenses, because verb tenses can be very important. I don't want a translator who says, well, it seems to me like what they meant to say was this other thing. Or what it's like in our experience is this other thing. No, they're not the authors. They are the translators. And therefore, I'll give the New King James Version a big fat F on this one. This big fat F is, you don't have the right to change the tense of the verb. You got to keep it in there. Thanks, Edith, for pointing that out. Yet another reason to just stick with the King James instead of the New King James. It's much better for you all the way around. Thanks for the word there. We have a second on the stop button, Nathan. The motion has been presented, seconded, and now it's time to move to the next question. This is Jim didn't put it, but I'm requesting M&M questions, ministry mentoring questions, because we have these two youngsters. And Jackson, my grandson, he always gets a kick out of it when I call him youngster. Come here, youngster. So you youngsters over here, we have a couple of youngsters who are preparing for ministry, and I want you all to give me questions to mentor them. So here's a good question. I'm gonna put this. I think Jim meant it for that, but if not, it's a pretty good question, just in general. So the question, Jim in South Carolina, I think I said Georgia earlier. I got my Jims mixed up. But how do you handle people coming by the church asking for money? Anybody in ministry will have to deal with this. People coming by the church asking for money. First of all, let me say that 99% of our phone calls today at our church is somebody asking for money or a salesman. And of those 99%, I would say probably 60% are asking for money, 40% are salesmen. So I know if the phone rings that, you put money down on it, they want money, or they want money in some way. They want me to buy something, or they just want me to give them money for their hotel room, whatever it is. And now that's probably true for most churches in the modern world today. And the reason for that is, even in larger churches, the reason for that is that so many people, especially in a small church, if my church members want to contact me, they know how to do it, and it's not the landline. The landline's a little bit of a dinosaur kind of thing, but the general public, the 1% of the call is, what time is your service? Or if we have some special event going on, when's the vacation Bible school? We get a few calls like that. But by and large, nobody uses the phone anymore. So they call to ask for money. Then I would say that outside of, delivery men and church members coming by, if there's a stranger that comes to the church, probably 70% of those are asking for money. And, every now and then you'll get, again, somebody who just, for whatever reason, they come and want to meet the pastor or whatever it may be. But the vast majority of unknown people who come to the church, they want money. Furthermore, a big challenge is Sunday mornings. People who want money, and especially scammers who want money, and I'll call them scammers because this is how they make their living, is asking people for money. They show up to church, and they start asking the people in the pew for money. That not real direct. They say, well, good morning. I'm John Q. Christian here, and we're glad to have you at our church today. Oh, thank you. I'm so glad to be here, boy. The car broke down. The wife is sick. The kids are shoeless. They haven't eaten in 7 years. And John Q. Christian says, oh my goodness, this is, I'm so sorry. Here, let me give you some money to help you out. And let's see if we can get the pastor here. And I try from time to time to tell my church members, don't ever give money in a church service. Don't give it to anybody in a church service. If there's some legitimate need, let's get some of the men together and let's talk, let's share it, and figure out what it is. But these people go to church on Sunday morning or on Wednesday night when the people are there, and talk to the people and get money from the people. Because the pastor, he's mean, he's not going to do it. But the people, they have a soft Christian heart, and they will give you money. So you really do have to handle this. Now, I did learn a long time ago that a local church can be either a social ministry that gives out money and aid, or it can be a church, but it can't be both. And the reason is that as soon as you start giving out money, that becomes all-consuming. There is this network. I don't know how it works, but there is a network that says they'll give you money there. Let me explain how I first learned this. I was the pastor at the First Baptist Church in Pampa, Texas, and as I noticed that we would have people coming. We were downtown church and a large church, and people would come in, excuse me, and they would ask for money. And I'm thinking, it's kind of it interrupts the work. It's always it's just sort of a steady flow. Here they come, and we're trying to get something done, and got to stop, and you introduce them, you hear the story. It's always a long story, and you go through this. It just takes time. So I was a young pastor, and I was probably 32, 33, 34. I said, I tell you what, from now on, you just tell these people, they were all local in that case. I said, just tell these people, we take appointments for Thursday at 2:00. You come Thursday at 2:00. Do you know the very next Thursday, we had a line out the door. We had not announced it. We just told the 2 or 3 that came in between here and Thursday, no, we do that Thursday at 2 o'clock. The word was out. First Baptist Church gives out money Thursday at 2 o'clock. And literally there was a line out the door. And this happened 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And then I said, we don't do that anymore. And the one thing I did that did kind of work, I said, we had Sunday night services, 6 o'clock. I said, okay, we do it at 6 o'clock. On Sunday night, you come to the service, and then we have a group of 6 deacons that you'll visit with. And what I did discover is they wouldn't sit through church, and they weren't going to sit in front of 6 deacons and tell their story. And literally, I probably should say virtually nobody ever came and asked for money again. So if you make the bar a little bit higher, then they go away. They're really not interested in carrying out much of that. But I have come in our world to say, I'm sorry, we don't give money. Personally, and this, it sounds kind of cruel. But personally, I don't give money individually. I see people at the grocery store, at the gas station, could you help me? Can you help me? Can you help me? Sorry, I can't. I can't today. And I don't give money. Every now and then, and it's very rare, but every now and then, if I think someone has a legitimate story, and it's very hard to find out if their story is legitimate because they're very good at this. If I think they have a legitimate story, I will say, let me call your pastor. I mean, they told me what a wonderful Christian they were, how they loved the Lord, they loved the church, they sing victory in Jesus. Let me call your pastor. I don't have a pastor. Well, maybe you should have thought of that sooner. My experience is 99.999% of the people who are asking for money, you shouldn't give it to them. They do have a legitimate financial need. They're not lying about that. But the way to get that need fixed is start making responsible decisions, get a job, get up at 7 in the morning, brush your teeth, comb your hair, show up at 10 minutes till 8, and work all day. They don't often. Now, I can tell you also that these people call and they love the Lord and sing victory in Jesus, and you tell them no, and they have a string of cuss words that would make a sailor blush. Just all of a sudden. I mean, they turn on a dime if you're not going to help them. So how do you handle people coming by the church asking for money? Again, maybe someone's got a better plan than this, but I would say, I'd say you help those people by saying, I'm sorry, we don't give money. If they argue about it, you might tell them, you know what, our church members, the faithful people in this church, we would bend over backwards to make sure they had anything they needed. And start coming to church here. Start being faithful here. You live in our community. You've lived here a long time. Just come Sunday morning, start showing up. I promise you, 6, 8, 10, 12 weeks down, we're gonna work for help. We're gonna help you. But right now, no, I'm sorry, we can't. There's just not enough to go around for that. And Chuck adds to this, when they ask for money, why not say we don't have any? The challenge is sometimes that's a legitimate answer. But sometimes you have to stretch the truth there. So if I was going to do that, I would say we don't have any for that purpose. All of our money is budgeted for other issues. I'm sorry, because almost everybody has a little bit of money, and I just need $20. It's usually a small amount. They've learned, if I come and say I need $700, that it doesn't happen. But they say, I need. Often it's this odd amount. I need $22. $22 will get me what I need. All I need is $22. Can you help? Sorry, we don't have any. And they look and say, you got 15 people here. Surely among these 15 people, you can find $22, right? So the we don't have any it sometimes leads you into a crunch. Now, personally, I don't usually carry much cash. It's not unusual at all for me not to have $22 on me because I do a lot of, cards and things like that. So sometimes you, if you're an individual, you can work that out. Okay, thank you. Now y'all know how to handle those who come and ask for money, right? It is hard because the stories sound sad. I remember one guy, it's right here in Taos, he came and he told me about his daughter died, and they'd had the funeral and everything, and he had gone kind of to get his mind together up north, and now he's coming back down to some little East New Mexico town, he's going to get back home, and he's got a job waiting for him, all this kind of stuff. And it really was kind of a sad story, and I thought, okay, he's going, but I didn't help him because I knew that was sorry, I don't. It was a Sunday morning. Do you know that about 6 months later, the same guy showed up on Sunday morning and had the exact same story? And I just, as he was talking through the story, I literally just stopped him and said, if you're gonna lie, at least get 2 lies. Tell a different lie. You told me this 6 months ago. Get on. See you later. I don't think we always have to be nice when somebody's trying to snooker us. They're lying to us. And most often, they have a legitimate financial need that they could take care of another way, but they're kind of lying. Okay, Beverly up in St. Croix County, Wisconsin. This is another M&M question, some mentoring for Reverend Corbin and non-Reverend Madison. Do you agree the 20-80 rule is pretty right on? In ministry, you have to find those 20% to get her done. Get her done. How do you go about finding them? That 20-80 rule, as it's called, the Pareto principle, I think is the legit name for it. Whoever Mr. Pareto was put his name on it. 20% of the people do 80% of the work, 20% of the people pay 80% of the bills, 20% of the book has 80% of the value, 20% of this program has 80% of the value. So I think that there is it's sort of a general thing that we waste a lot of time and energy and all of that. Now, and by the way, I found this helpful in books. If you can read a book looking for that 20%, you got 80% of the content in it. It's right there. And that if you get to know an author, you kind of know where that is. Is it in the first page of the chapter or is it in the last page of the chapter? You sort of catch on after a while. Now, do I agree with the 20-80 rule? Kind of, I agree. In its most basic scientific way, yeah, 20% of the people do 80% of the work. However, here's where I think the danger is. You take those 80% of the people that don't do much. You can get a critical attitude about them, and I don't think you should. Because those 80% of the people who aren't doing much, take that group of let's take the 80%. They're not doing much. Well, how many of them are elderly and they really legitimately can't, come out and work in the church nursery or get up on the ladder and, fix the whatever up high that's not working, or they're young and healthy and able, but they also have 2 kids and a demanding job. And this young man literally is getting up at 5 a.m. and he is going until 10 at night. And he has the heart to do it, and he has the skill to do it, but he can't. So there is this for any given job, say in the church, there's 20% of the people who legitimately could do it anyway. So you're looking at 100% of the people that can do it, and you're grateful to have them. So don't look at it and say, it's always this little group of people right here, this little group of people. Well, guess what? That little group of people is from 65 to 75 years old. They've got some extra cash and they've got some extra time. And they probably weren't even part of the 20%, 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. They were probably part of the 80% because they didn't have any extra cash and they didn't have any extra time, and it was just they were taking 2 steps forward and 3 steps back, and life was difficult in those days. So you do have to take people where they are, and I think preachers have used the 20-80 rule to shame people and to manipulate people and to guilt people into, you should be. Basically, preachers have tried to say 100% should be doing 100% of the work. Well, life is not socialism, Karl Marx. It doesn't work this way. And so there is that issue of people are able in different ways. And what we hope is that everybody's coming through and doing something. Again, the ability of, say, the widow in giving her mite and the millionaire in giving his, 100,000, whatever it is, we hope they're giving of their time, treasure, and talents in a way that I don't know, what would you say? In a way that is balanced. So do I agree with the 20-80% rule? Yeah, in practicality, that's what it is. Should you try to change that? Probably not. I think you probably should just recognize this is what it is, to be grateful for that 20% of the people, to know that 20% is going to change depending upon the task and the time and the season of life. And to enjoy and encourage the 20% and be a blessing to the 80%, and carry that out. Chuck, going back to it's kind of the given money, but it's the other percent that's the salesman. What's wrong with simply saying to the salesman, we don't want any? Nothing. And that's often what I say, except once a year, Right Now Media calls me at the church, and I always take the call from Right Now Media. Right Now Media is one of the largest purveyors of evangelical garbage there is, and I relish my annual call with Right Now Media. Do you know this? It's always in January. They're trying to sell me this junk that I can, peddle off on the churches and look like I'm a wonderful guy. And I just tell them, you guys got so much garbage on there. Why in the world would I want to be a part of this? And I preach to them a little bit, and they always, I will pass this on, sir. It's so good to know. And then they hang up, and I'm sure they're saying, cuckoo, cuckoo. But this year, it was so sweet. The girl from Right Now Media that called me, and I gave her my sermon, literally 3 days later, she called again. It was the same one. I'm sure somehow we were on the list because she said, hi, I'm so-and-so with Right Now Media. And I said, oh, we get to do it twice. And she immediately said, oh, I'm sorry, sir. I meant to take you off the list. I said, don't take me off the list. I'm looking forward to next year's call. So sometimes you should have a little fun with it. Now they'll probably take me off the list, and I won't get to have my fun there. Let's see. How does the time go by so quickly? And I still got all these questions. like Robert, I was supposed to start the program there, and I didn't. Let's blame Nathan, okay? A follow-up on the tree of life. We see that only the east gate of the garden had guards and a flaming sword. Was that gate the only way in? This was the Garden of Eden, of course, and the east gate had this flaming sword. Now let me just double check and make sure that we have our story right here. And Genesis chapter 3, verse 23. Therefore the Lord God sent him forth from the Garden of Eden to till the ground. He drove the man out, and he placed at the east of the Garden of Eden cherubims and a flaming sword which turned every way. So we were right. I just wanted to double check Robert there. Genesis chapter 3, verse 24. So is this the only gate? He placed at the east of the garden. It doesn't really say gate, but I think we can assume that. Let's check this at the east. There's a reference to 2 verse 8. The Lord God planted a garden eastward in Eden, and there he put the man who formed. In Hebrew, east and sunrise are the same. Does it have something to do with that? Probably not. Probably we're just talking east here. Why only the eastern gate, and was that gate the only way in? I would say I'm not sure about why, but it almost looks like that was the only way in, because this was placed there so that they couldn't get in. Obviously, it wouldn't make sense to say it's placed there so that they have to take the long way around to get in. So I think we can assume, it is an assumption, but we can assume this is the only way in, the east gate. Interesting also, the Lord is going to enter into Jerusalem from the eastern gate. So, you know, what's the significance to that? Why does the Lord like the east? It'd be interesting to study east, north, south, east, west in the scripture sometime and determine, does God have a favorite direction or is it random? I've never done that study, but it would be interesting. Now, I think it's also interesting that when Cain and Abel bring their sacrifice, I think this is the place they bring it. They bring it to these cherubim, this flaming sword, and there before the manifest presence of God, if you will, they are offering the sacrifice. And there's a reason that, you know, certain time and certain place, this is where they came. Again, we're assuming a little bit there because the text doesn't perfectly tell us. So was the question, was the eastern gate the only way into Eden? I'm going to say yes, but it is a little bit of an argument of silence, a little bit of an argument of, what would you say, presumption, that we almost have to presume that to be true. Yeah, thank you very much. Let's see here. I've got, interesting. So Alex in London, I'm saving your, the answer is yes to Alex's question. How's that? Can you do a standalone sermon debunking Acts 28er? This is becoming more popular on social media. He's talking about when did the dispensation of grace begin. And we should write this down here. You know, I have this lovely pen and the ink ran out, so it's just for show. But here, I found a pen over here. Acts 28 sermon. Requested from Alex in London. So I'm going to erase that one and say yes. Nick, I'm saving your question for tomorrow. It relates a little bit. Please explain the lack of water baptism in mid-Acts dispensationalism. I'll save that for tomorrow. Michael down in Cucamonga, exactly who goes to heaven and who does not, why for both, an M&M question. So we'll save that one for tomorrow also. And Manny, I'm sorry. I tell you what, I'm gonna hold your question for tomorrow too, just because of the hour at hand, and I don't want to cheat it there. So I got those 4 questions that will be saved for tomorrow, and carry that out. Yeah, I'm just reading Nancy's comment here. She mentioned Salt Lake City. And talking about giving people money. She said there's parking meters designated for donations to the homeless, stating to please not give them handouts. I don't know what the result has been, but I do know that a couple of years ago I was in Salt Lake City, spent the night in Salt Lake City, and we went and did a couple of tour things. And I noticed they seem to have a very strong measure against handing people money. In the downtown area, there were lots of signs, and I hadn't seen the parking meters, but there's a decent idea. It would be interesting to know if this has worked, because all across America, the rise of homelessness has greatly increased. I don't think it's an economic issue, by the way. I think it's a choice issue, and maybe some political issues that we've decided we drugged up a bunch of our kids, and now they're incapable of operating in society, and so we threw out that generation. Now we need to figure out something to do with them, because there really are people out there that, like, honestly, they couldn't get up and take a job and carry a job and hold it all day long. Nobody would work with them, and all. So something has to be done there. But I'm going to look. I'd be interested to see, is Salt Lake City making headway on this? Are they solving some problems? I think political choices can be made to keep a city from and tourist cities like Salt Lake City, and Salt Lake City, of course, is also known for Mormonism, which is typically known for kindness and generosity. Places like this, you don't want to just go and have to constantly deal with, can I have some money? 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 And you deal with this in Santa Fe, you deal with it in Albuquerque, you deal with it in Taos, and tourists struggle with it. And maybe people come to tourist communities. I don't know, but I'm gonna look and see. Hey, is there something that can be done? I think on a local level, you and I ought to ask our city council candidates, what do you plan to do about the panhandle situation? How can we handle all that? Thanks. Interesting. Y'all check out Salt Lake City. Let's see if they did any good or not in that. If they did, I'm sure it was not because of Mitt Romney, who's a snake in the grass. Okay, that's all the time I've got for political opinions today, and theological questions, worldview questions, biblical questions. Look forward to seeing you tomorrow, however, at the same time. And again, tonight we will be on with Ask the Theologian. We'll be on with our Bible study at 7 p.m., the book of Titus. I think we'll have a fun time doing that tonight. So God bless you. Go ahead and mark Labor Day weekend on your calendar to be in Branson, Missouri. Romans graphically presented. I think we're going to have a good time. Until then, we'll see you at randywhiteministries.org. God bless.